Hey, good evening. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous coming to you on a Friday evening. It's Good Friday, in fact. And I am stepping into your life and your evening just to give you some hope, some tools, some help, some techniques as you go through the trauma of divorce. So, this is, again, as I stated, Good Friday. I was going to speak a continuation of what I did last week on how to minimize the damage and save money and divorce. But then I realized today was Good Friday. And I thought, being Good Friday is an opportunity for us to reflect on the beauty and the grotesqueness of what had happened to Christ, and then the understanding that this happened for the very reason for us to be able to have access and relationship with God. And many times we feel like divorce is our darkest days and that we're never going to see a sunrise again and we're never going to see life again. But the truth is, there's resurrection. There's resurrection for your soul, and there's also resurrection for your life once Christ gets a hold of it. So I hope you have had a few moments today to really ponder and think about the beauty and the awfulness of what Jesus has done for you. And it is a solemn time, but it's also a glorious time because Sunday's coming, right? And Sunday is coming for you as you go through this trauma of divorce. So I titled this Divorce is a Spiritual Matter. And I want to give just a few points here that I hope can help you. I know that many times as you go through divorce, many people will shy away from God. They will withdraw out of shame, really. They feel that God is mad at them, that God can't draw near to them, can't possibly love them at this awful time, or can't possibly want to comfort them or direct them and guide them. And well, those are all lies of the enemy, because that is exactly where God is at this moment, wanting to draw near to you, to comfort you, to give you direction. In fact, I marvel over the last 19 years of the many people who haven't set foot in a church for decades, since maybe they were a child or never, and find themselves coming into the church for help and support. And that is such a beautiful thing to see when they enter into the church, because it is bewildering. It is so challenging as you go through a divorce. And honestly, you don't know which way to turn. And so you stumble across this program called Divorce Support Anonymous, and you say, hey, what have I got to lose? And you come in and you meet with total strangers. And by the time the 10 weeks is over, you have found people who understand you and get what you're going through. In fact, they're going through it themselves. So my next support group does begin May 7th, and I hope that you will join us and you will have an opportunity really to process through all that you are dealing with in this divorce. We talk about emotions, we talk about the decisions you have to make, we talk about how we have to accept where we are. And then the most fabulous part is we begin to look forward into a new life after divorce. So let's jump into some points here. First of all, divorce is a spiritual issue because marriage was created by God. And the pain that we have is also spiritual pain. So that's good to note. I know that you're dealing with so much, the legalities, the finances, the children, that you might even neglect the thought or the understanding that this is a spiritual pain. We are feeling this spiritual isolation from another person. We're feeling spiritual isolation from God, perhaps, during this time. This pain that we have is spiritual. The covenant of marriage is based on relationship. And so I'm reading this wonderful book by Dr. Tony Evans about a divorce and remarriage, and he reminded me about the beauty of what a covenant is. You can have a contract with someone. You don't have to have a relationship with them, right? It's a legal contract that you have with them. You're doing business, whatever. But a covenant is different because it is based on a relationship. God's covenant with us in the Old Testament with Israel, the New Testament with Christ is based on relationship. It's not based on just legality or legality at all. Legality is secondary to the fact that it's based on relationship. So that's important for us to understand what marriage is before we can really comprehend divorce. We also understand that one person can break that covenant. It only takes one. And I know you hear these words and they make me cringe when I hear them. Well, it takes two to tango. You don't know the other side. Well, it only takes one person to destroy a covenant. Only one. Doesn't take two. Now, neither party is perfect, that's for sure. But it only takes one to break the relationship, to break the covenant. Death ends a marriage. That's what we are designed, marriage is designed to be. It's going to be a covenant, a relationship between two people until death. But there are other forms of death. If you remember when Adam and Eve were in the garden and God said, if you eat of the tree of life of good and evil, you will surely die. When they ate, they instantly died, even though their bodies didn't die for quite some time. They were in a spiritual death. And so when you have a marriage that has abandonment or pornography or abuse of some kind, then you are experiencing the death of a marriage, the death that is creating in fact, a divorce. It only takes the sin of one, can be both parties, but it only takes the sin of one to create a divorce. So divorce itself is an allowance by God. It's not a command of God, but it's an allowance by God. And one of the reasons that divorce is allowed is because God wanted to protect, back in the day of the Old Testament, to protect women who could be divorced and sent out of their home with the children and left abandoned, which meant total devastation for them. Divorce was allowed by God to protect the innocent party, to protect in that case, in the Old Testament, the women. In the New Testament, is to protect the innocent party. So all of that to say that divorce is not an unforgivable sin and that God does forgive. In fact, that's what Good Friday is all about, is the forgiveness of sin. And I don't know what caused your divorce or where you find yourself today in this situation, but I want you to know that God longs to draw near to you. He longs for this to be your Good Friday, where you surrender all of your sin, rebellion, and wrongdoing to the cross, to be free, to live a life in relationship with God. God forgives. That's what Easter, that's what Good Friday is all about. Now, many times in my group, I have people who say, I know God forgives me, but I can't forgive myself. That happens, and it breaks my heart. In fact, in my book, Suddenly Single, Rebuilding Your Life After Divorce, I have a prayer that says, I forgive me. And that talks about standing before the cross and giving your sin over and accepting that forgiveness. So we actually place ourselves above God when we say, I can't forgive myself, because God has forgiven you when you ask for that forgiveness. So it's wrong for us not to forgive ourselves. And it's wrong for us to live in the shame of this. God doesn't want this burden upon you. He wants you to live free. He wants you to release the shame, the guilt, all of it onto the cross. And then he wants to have a relationship with you. I love this verse, and I hope that it can be of encouragement to you. It says, but you, O Lord, are God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. I don't know where you find yourself on this Good Friday of 2024, but I pray it's before the cross. I pray it's at a safe space where you can release all of the guilt and shame that comes with this trauma of divorce, and you can stand clean, accepted by God, forgiven, and ready to move forward into life after divorce, because there is life after divorce. I have seen it so many times. In fact, I love it when I meet up with people who have gone through my group, or I've divorce coached or been a mediator with, and I see them a year later and their countenance is totally changed. If they have worked intentionally on their healing, it doesn't happen by time, it doesn't happen by some magic. It happens when people are intentional about their healing, and I hope that you are. So reach out to me if I can be of help, and realize that this is your own struggle with God. He is compassionate, He is loving toward you, and He's not mad at you. He longs for you to draw near to Him. I hope something that has been said today has been of help to you. Reach out to me if I can be of help. I offer my first hour at no cost. I have a workbook that I send you if you're beginning this process to help you get started. I don't want you to go alone. Don't go alone through divorce. Get the support that you need. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, walking with you every step of the way through the trauma of divorce. Thanks for watching. Have a great Easter season.